Welcome to the KINJAZ Podcast. Here we will discuss dance, life, and whatever the we want.
Folks, welcome back or welcome to Kinjaz Movement in the Shadows. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
And we have a very, very special guest, our friend, our brother in the pod. So excited. The last time we talked to him was at the very beginning of the pod. Well, we did another side thing, but we'll get to that. We have a pillar, maybe even a cornerstone in our dance community.
Ooh, I like that.
He's a founder of Kaba Modern and KM Legacy. You guys probably already know who he is, but we're going to keep going. He is president of Culture Shock International, founder of Roots Before Branches. He is a doctor of occupational therapy.
Hey, yo.
He is our Kinjaz brother. He is our North Star. He is our Yoda. Arnel Calvario is back in the pod. What's up, Arnel?
What's up, brother?
Yeah!
See, that's a classic
That's
Arnel
the
intro. I like to hear.
That's
What's up,
the
brother?
one, man.
Good to
Man.
be back.
Well, dude, so first of all, we're stoked to have you back on season 2. And as we were talking before we were recording upstairs, you were reminding of what season 1 was like, and you were the first video episode that we had. We had some technical difficulties. We didn't have it all dialed in yet, but you know, we've kind of figured out a system.
We
We're
still
in the
don't have it
room.
all dialed in, but
We're trying. Every episode we're
Love
getting
this.
a little bit better.
Yeah.
And you come bearing gifts this time.
Yeah.
Man, you brought us some like dope plants.
Yes.
Give us just explain why and what are we looking at over here?
Well, Ben is a lot of the Kinjaz actually are a fan of Bruce Lee and his
Yes.
his ethos, right?
that's my uncle.
So, so this is actually a gift for Ben, a belated gift for Ben. He had a milestone birthday last year.
I did.
And then this is for Ant and the house and this room. This is a reflector plant. So this is from Plantitas and this is from Good Morning Cactus. But
Wow.
yeah, it's just to kind of, I feel like when we entered this space, we're all mirrors for each other, you know? And so I just thought it'd be nice to bring that energy into this room. So.
Dude, thank
And this
you
is
so
why we
much.
call him the North Star.
And well, you are the first ever guest to bring us a gift coming into the pod. Like, of course, Arnel would bring us a gift.
Fast forward, Arnel's on the next 10 episodes because we just keep going.
Yeah, man, it's good. It's good. Well, you know, this is not your first time on the pod, and so you were one of our early guests in our first season, and we start off with the origin stories and all that. But if you guys are wondering, go back and listen to those previous episodes. You did hop on during our allyship series when we were talking about that. That was a really good 3-part series that we did as well. So if you guys are curious, that's also there.
Yeah.
But we want to just catch up with you, man.
Yeah, we're in season 2. And season 2 also means, you know, new lessons, new life, new energy. And you know, it was important that we got you back on the pod because so much life has happened, and we are all changed people. You know what I mean? So that's why we got to bring you back. But what you didn't get a chance to talk about last time in your origin story is a huge pivotal part in your life, in many of our lives. And Ben had just mentioned it, was something called culture shock. Let's talk about culture shock a little bit for everybody out there.
Yeah, so I joined Culture Shock right after I finished my UCI chapter.
Oh, real quick for everybody out there, what is culture shock?
So Culture Shock's an international 501c3 nonprofit dance organization that really utilizes dance for enrichment programs, education, and of course, entertainment, right? And so the ideals of Culture Shock is to cultivate self-worth, dignity, and
respect for all people.
Wait a second. How
Wait
did
a
you know
second.
that?
I don't
That's
know,
an
man.
alumni right there.
I just
you
read
on
the
Culture
website.
Shock?
You know? I just follow them on Instagram. You know?
Yeah, Anthony is a big part of Culture Shock and Chad as well. Culture Shock's legacy, so Culture Shock LA. So, but I grew up as a Boy Scout, just like you, Ant.
Scout's
Right.
honor. Boom.
So I was a Boy Scout, and then in high school I was in Key Club. So I always enjoyed community service, community outreach, and just being out in the community. You know, taking whatever we're using as a vehicle for change, for community, right? So it's kind of interesting full circle because, you know, now, you know, with the advent of the Air Sesh, the Nike. You know, one of the other attractions for Culture Shock was the Nike hip hop dance troupe at the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the first entry of hip hop dancers into this realm, and people were being sponsored, you know, individually as dance athletes. Like Nike Angie Bunch is one of the first sponsored, and then Culture Shock was the first dance organization sponsored.
And now, again, for everybody out there, when you say at the time, can you give us
That's
the
a good-
What
timing?
time was it?
So this was so 1997.
Ayo.
1997
what's
and
up.
1998, I didn't want to join any team. I just wanted to train. So I drove down from Irvine to San Diego and trained at Culture Shock San Diego's master classes at the time. And then in 1998, I auditioned for Culture Shock San Diego, and I didn't make it, actually. I didn't make it. My homie Jose, Jose Neri, and you know Jose. Jose and Daisy, they made it as alternates on the team. And so that was like a big, like, whoa, I need to train. It's a different movement, but it's a movement. Culture Shock LA and Culture Shock San Diego's movement at the time was something that reminded me of what I grew up with. Like the more like the bigger movements, the groove, like the soul, that kind of like reminded me of like the house parties I grew up in, right? So in 1998, I also moved to LA. I auditioned for Culture Shock LA, and then I made it. And that was where I guess I was meant to be. And so I was in it for a while, and then just like what I mentioned in the first time we were on the podcast, I had gone back to school to do my master's in occupational therapy, and I knew I wanted an outlet for dance at the time. And so I was in Culture Shock LA. But once I finished school, I was invited to judge one of the auditions, and I didn't know that at that moment the executive director was moving to New York and wanted to hand the whole team to me as the new executive director. And I only, at that point in time, you know, I finished my master's. I was starting to work as an occupational therapist, and I was like, the only way I would go back to being a director again, like I was in Cabo Modern, is if it was something brand new and different that provided something that the community or the dance community needed. And so in 2003, I said yes if I could have my dream team of directors like Tiffany Bong, Ira, Emma Houston, all these amazing, like, good humans, Allison Tanaka, that I've known over the years that I trust with my life, you know, Dave Magno, Dennis Kaindeck. And so then we ended up being the dream team, the six of us together. We did the whole thing. We actually ended up rewriting all the bylaws for Culture Shock International, because Culture Shock LA is one of 9 cities across the world, you know, for this organization. But I think what really things changed is 2005, because I know we'll probably talk about this later. I'm old enough that I grew up pre-computers, pre-cell phone, pre-social media.
He was born in the 19th century.
I was born in the 1970s. So it was interesting to experience dance in my childhood and then have these new tools that are just continuously coming out to better connect us to the world. But then also see what we gain and also what we lose, right? And so when I took over Culture Shock LA in 2003, 2004, and 2005 was about creating things that I felt were missing in the dance community at that time. So yeah, so Culture Shock LA is my heart, because that's where I feel like I transitioned from passion projects to purpose projects. Because I feel like in our younger years, it should be all about passion, right? We're just diving into new things. We're making mistakes, you know, we're having triumphs, and we're just the excitement and adventure and, you know, exploration and expansion of it all, right?
Yeah.
But at a certain age and a certain time of your life, you realize that time is so precious. You know, you start seeing mortality and other things, and you realized what I really want to do is purpose projects. You know, that's where I want to move into in this next chapter.
What age in life was this transition? Like, how old were you when you're like, okay, passion to now purpose?
31.
31.
Yeah.
That's still pretty young.
It's still pretty young. And that was also the last year I lived as a straight person. It was that year as well. I felt like at that year, I knew I was entering a new trajectory. I didn't quite understand it, but I felt it inside, you know. And I knew passion wasn't enough, because passion-wise, man, you know, Cabo Modern, you know, my roommate created Vibe, you know, this whole community is growing, and I got to perform with like people I idolized, you know, I got to become friends with a lot of people that I looked up to and build new things. And that entertainment aspect of myself was fulfilled. But it was these other things that I was like, but what was I like really made as a human being to do?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And, it's not like I don't want to perform, but I want to have new motivation for why I want to perform.
So tying that to culture shock, like what did that, you know, turn into? What did that mean?
It turned into benefit shows, because at the time, you know, there were a lot of dance competitions and battles. Battles, you know, obviously were there from the get, right? From the 80s and 90s all the way through. But yeah, I felt like there should be something else besides, you know, Vogue balls and dance and battles and competitions. And I really felt that there were so many, even at that time, I was already cognizant there were so many social justice issues, you know what I mean? So culture shock, it started actually in 2006 because one of our directors, our dance captain's brothers, got shot in a liquor store robbery, and we wanted to raise money for the family. So we just said, let's put together a showcase last minute, call it Heaven Sent, and then take all the proceeds and give 100% to the family, because we loved our friend Mickey Gregorio so much. And then the feeling from that, not only from ourselves, but our future shock dancers, to see some of them tear up and be changed by that journey, I was like, this is one of the things that's missing. You know what I mean? To tell people, to not only within ourselves be transformed by the power of story, but also for kids and adults to be transformed by the power of purpose. You know? And so every year it was like, all right, what do we care about this year? What are the issues in your lives? You know, HIV AIDS awareness was the next one. The next one was domestic violence prevention. I mean, some really crazy issues. Then there were some lighter ones like, you know, the pros and cons of technology.
I remember that one too.
One of my favorite was the one that you did, you know, Roy Meets World.
Roy Meets World.
The journey, you know, of a boy through life. And
you know what's crazy? I oftentimes, and I think a lot of people have definitely heard us say, both me and Mike, you know, we've always talked about, no matter how far we've gone with dance or even with Kinjaz or any stage that we've gone on, Ambu Black Ops at Vibe Dance Competition, when we first debuted, is like hands down the greatest and best moment in my entire dance journey. But what I never really get a chance to talk about is the one right after that is Roy Meets World. And that was actually, you know, again, this is we're talking about an annual benefit show that Culture Shock LA puts on every single year, you know, to dedicate to some sort of cause or initiative. And with our company, at that time, I think this was 2012 or 11 or something like that. I had come back to direct the team. Arnel obviously did his magic and figured out how to bring
this line out. I think I've done it to all of you.
And that was my first time putting on a very, very large scale show. So, you know, usually you're getting used to these dance community situations where you're spending like 3 months putting together like a 7-8 minute set. And here we are being challenged to put on like this hour plus long show, you know, dedicated with purpose, you know, and it wasn't as simple as like getting like, you know, your dance team and doing it. It was like involving Future Shock LA, which is like the teen group or high school group right under Culture Shock, which is an adult group. There was Mighty Shock LA, which is just younger than that, you know, preteen. And then there was Mini Shock LA, which is like your 4 to 7 year old. So and then there was even Aftershock, which was like, you know, alumni that were much older, you know, members of the group. But trying to bring everybody together to put together this coming of age story. And even for my own personal journey, having been afforded that opportunity to figure out a more purpose-driven way to create was a huge moment for me in my entire dance career. But yeah, I never get a chance to talk about it, but it's really cool to acknowledge Culture Shock Los Angeles for that moment and everybody who was a part of that.
You know, going off of even just like, you know, you were saying how you kind of fished Anthony in.
Yes.
I think something that I personally, I mean, you know, we all in this room, we have a lot of years of history, and we all have a lot of like separate experiences, you know, with you, Arnel, and like through the years that I've known you, and I've just seen it more clearly in my later years of knowing you. I'm like, oh, that's Arnel's like superpower. He just, you're kind of like an A&R, man. Like you kind of just, you keep your eyes and ears to the streets, and you just like, hey, you guys need to look out for this person. Like this person's gonna be the next whatever. And not trying to toot our own horns here, like as if we are those next people, but I remember my experiences with you too, where you know, before Kaba, there was DVS.
Yes.
And and you referred to me and my boy Mike Chong, shout out Mike Chong, as the Koreans.
Yeah. Everyone called them
watch
the
out
Koreans.
for the Koreans.
Yes.
And you know, we were doing these like fight skits, like to sound effects and things like that.
Which I love that show, by the way. But anyway, move on.
and like, you know, when, you know, we got on DVS, and then you know, ACA was kind of mixed into there at some point, and then I transferred to UCI.
Yes.
And then you were like, hey, you should come out to Kaba auditions. And I was like, oh shoot, what? And I didn't, you know, I was super introverted at the time. I was super shy and had no friends. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna audition by myself because I don't want to make friends because I'm all shy and stuff. And so and then you know, I made the team. And then after me joining Kaba, I started to see like the power of Arnel, but not in this like overt sort of like my way's the highway type of, but you just have this influence that is so trusted, because going back to passion and like, you know, just your character, I think the way that you love people first, and the way that you like, you know, all the things that you pursued was because you loved it. And then you know, that transition from, I think passion can turn into purpose when you realize that the thing that I love is the thing that's going to like be the thing that's my legacy, you know, and then, but then now making sure that everything is like purposeful and things like that. So I think, you know, fast forwarding into all things Kinjaz, and you know, you have a story with everybody here, I feel like, in some way, shape, or form.
And Arnel's power rubs off because after Ben went on Kaba, it's because of Ben that Mike joined Kaba.
Yeah, it's
Because
like
he was about to audition for CBC, and then Ben was like, hey, no, dude, come audition for Kaba. And that was the end of that story.
Yeah. And then we're all like super close, like different generations.
Yeah.
I remember Ben because you made your first, because I knew you as a freestyler. When you joined DVS, your superpower at the time was freestyle.
Terminal illness.
And then you made your first choreographed piece. I feel like, I'm trying to remember the first piece you made.
It was Usher. You know what?
I knew it. Yeah,
Usher. You don't have to call. Every one of those moves were all bites. I just
really?
bit moves off of so many people. I just thought that's how it was, because how I started dancing was just literally learning K-pop choreography off of the videos, and then going on stage at these Korean talent shows and literally doing it verbatim. So I was like, oh yeah, choreography. You just take moves that you like and you just put them together, and then you just make them a routine. I didn't see anything wrong with
People still do that.
They're not my moves.
It's okay.
Unfortunately,
It's okay, Ben. People still do
Unfortunately,
that.
I learned my ways.
Yeah, and then, you know, a lot of people like, you know, they look up to someone, and it starts first with like trying to emulate, and then you realize actually it's way more than that. It's more things than that.
Hey, you know what?
But,
I emulated Mike's song before I knew Mike's song.
What?
I also copied a little bit of his up-tempo high school performance for my high school lip sync before I knew anything about anything. I told him
these are all like new revelations we haven't talked
it's
about.
crazy.
No, Mike knows, but now everyone else does.
now everybody knows I'm a biter.
Oh my god, I know. I mean, even myself, like I was like what I see in the parks, you know, at the community center, I was copying and being influenced by people around me. Like we all do it at different stages. It's just kind of funny to look back on.
You know what's funny about that though too? This kind of goes back to a previous conversation that we were having with Renee and Hannah over lunch today, talking about like
Renee and Hannah are amazing partners over
shout
at
out
Broccoli
Broccoli
Productions
Productions.
that are backing us up with this podcast show.
Yeah,
here.
we love you guys.
Yes.
You know, they had brought up the topic of like social media, TikTok, and what that's doing to dance, right? Is it helping? Is it hurting? And then, you know, Anthony had mentioned that it's a double-edged sword. It's kind of doing both. It's helping and hurting. And I guess it's all perspective at that point. Because, you know, and as we were talking over lunch, you know, I was thinking about, you know, the accessibility of dance now because of social media. Everyone, I mean, if you have a smartphone and an internet connection, everyone has access to dance. You open up TikTok, you see the same people doing the same moves or whatever. Right. But I look at that as like, that was prior to social media. We all knew the same dances because we would see the same dances happen at the house parties. You would go and like, oh, what is that? The cabbage? Like, what is that? It's like, teach me that. And so all of our social party dances were learned from being in the right place at the right time, where people who knew those things would do it, and then it would catch on, and it's like, hey, what is it? Or you would just try to just catch on and figure it out for yourself, and then you would take that to your next party, and then it's in it. So the social dances back in the time that we grew up, which I feel like we're like dinosaurs now, it was only able to be learned and shared via actual social interaction, like physically, and then but then now, because of technology, those social interactions happen, you know, over the internet. And but I think that the spreading of dance, you are able to learn and receive based off of what's available to you with what the world has, and now everything's available, and I think it's just an interesting sort of like thing to kind of understand of like, how do dances become TikTok dances? Like, well, the TikTok dances of our generation was just showing up at the same parties and teaching them dances.
Here's the exact case in point of the double-edged sword, though, right? Everything's available, and yet not everything is super available as well, right? Because now, you know, 90% of the kids on the street are gonna know the same TikTok viral dance, but they might not necessarily know who created it or the history and stuff. Which is why we got guys like Arnel over here. Doing things like roots before branches, you know what I mean? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about roots before branches.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. It's so interesting what you said, like social media, I agree with you. It's a double-edged sword because the tool in itself is not evil. It's like how you use it can be helpful or harmful, right? And I agree with you. And I feel like social media is easy access, but then what we're missing are the things that Ben was just talking about, is the actual energy and conversations. Because if you wanted to know about a party or you wanted to know about a dance, you actually had to talk to someone about it and then have a conversation. And so a lot of that history and the culture is embedded in the actual teaching, right? Because you're not just teaching moves. You're like, oh, you need to go for this groove. You need to, you know, like it's a lot of like customized experiential connections. And so that's why I created Roots Before Branches, because I felt like in 2005, I loved social media because now I could talk to people on the other side of the world. But I felt like that intimacy and the context and the nuance was now missing, right? Because everything's about posts and captions, and, you know, and as we know with communication, right, there's no tone and there's a lot of nuance missing when we think about social media, when it's just a picture or a video with no audio, right? In terms of talking. So I felt like some of that history and heritage was now being lost. And as the generation's getting younger and younger, you know, the generation that had these conversations in community were starting to become older and older. You know what I mean? And so now it's time to bring the conversation back through some medium where we're having intergenerational connection, right? So Roots Before Branches was not like an accumulation of conversations from like amazing mentors and inspirations like Don Campbell, you know, may he rest in peace, or like Victor Manuel, you know, or even legends I didn't know, I knew from afar, like the legend. Well, I met him through Kinjaz Dojo, actually, Mr. Wiggles,
Yeah.
who I have been following and taking classes from forever and ever, and reading all of his, his everything he puts on his websites. And now it's like taking things that people don't take the time to look up to make it accessible for this younger generation who's like really fast. It's like Facebook, social media. I mean, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, now TikTok, Snapchat, like, you name it, so many different things.
And again, for everybody out there, these people that he's mentioning, these are like legends, OGs, innovators of our culture, not just of like particular dance moves and stuff like that, but really people that like founded culture in the movement of dance and were able to teach and spread that to a large community that ended up becoming a very, very worldwide audience to this thing. So for everybody out there, if you could sum up or describe what Roots Before Branches is, what would you say it is?
It's like a collection of stories and history and pieces of history and heritage of different dance art forms that I've learned about through my dance journey. And it's not all, so it's not a complete list, but it's just many of those art forms. So some of the art forms I discuss or I share are like Vogue, locking, popping, boogaloo, breaking, the 4 elements of hip hop, 5 actually now. There's a little bit of crump in there, 80s, 90s party dancing, and it's done in sequential order. Punking, whacking, right? All these, and I call them dance art forms. I don't call them styles anymore. Monsell Durden, some of his teachings have really inspired me to now embolden what we do as art forms, because ballet, jazz, and tap, which is often centered in like university spaces and studio spaces, they've been calling themselves art forms forever. Styles are like how I talk, how I dress, but styles also go in and out of fashion. But art forms are held together by history, heritage, a particular kind of music, a particular group of people who created it, a place, what I mean? It's all those things. Those are formed together as an art form. So I teach Roots Before Branches to really be not the end all be all, but more I see myself as a connector between generations. So the stories I was privy to, I share, and I reference every single OG that I'm sharing their information from, as well as websites and ways to find them. And I'm always telling people, this is if the main goal I have with Roots Before Branches is for you to learn 3 new things and to connect you to something you haven't been connected to before. Whether it's an art form you do, or an art form you're curious about, or even something you don't want to do, but hey, now I know about it. You know what I mean? Now I know a little bit more about it. So
I'm smiling because for everybody, again, I feel like I'm talking to everybody out there because we're just fucking family. We're brothers here, you know what I mean? But this is why everybody calls him Yoda. If you didn't know why we call him Yoda, this is a firsthand experience because, as humble as it is to be just like the connector, the facilitator of, history and culture and conversations from people like that is legacy. That's really where it all comes from. And, for people to even have the opportunity or even the privilege to like hear those stories and stuff and learn something so deep rooted, things that affect us in ways that we don't even know, that's important to value it more deeply, you know what I mean? And also to give respect to the legacy or the legends that built that legacy that we get to participate in today's world,
Yeah, because your generation, I mean, people may or may not know it, but you've been in those classes yourselves. You've trained for years and years and years in the culture. Even, people may see you as these, choreo dancers, whatever that means. But that was part of our upbringing, you know what I mean? It's a generation in between then and now that somehow along the way wasn't privileged to be in those spaces anymore because they were more learning from YouTube or the video. They weren't necessarily going to the jams or to the workshops even, or to the camps or to the jams or the battles or the balls. And that was the generation I was really concerned about because I saw it come really fast and then it lasted for a little while. And that's also the era, and I hate to like talk crap, this is like terrible, but that was also the era when I felt like all these dance teams were regurgitating the same formulaic kind of presentation to win competitions. I'm like, what the fuck is this? We were born out of innovation and about sharing people's stories who've been erased. And and now this generation, which is interesting, I think the pandemic and all these social justice issue, everything that we learned from Breonna Taylor and George Floyd last year really opened us to even the greater importance of how these art forms can be used to now give voice, you know what I mean, to marginalized people, women, queer people, right? And these art forms are like one of the most brilliant vehicles to do it because, dude, the language of dance is universal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We may all speak different languages around the world, but something about dance and music, we can connect on that, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I think there's something that I'm like even just kind of observing in the way that we perceive the onset of social media and what it did, both positive and negative. And this is in no way to shame the youth because of what they are.
Absolutely not.
You were born into a world that these things were already there. You didn't know the world before that, and it's not like we're over here being the old grumpy guys like, oh, we had it better. We did it without cell phones, and we actually had like Thomas guides, and we know how to like. It's not about being grumpy old men. I think what I'm also even just kind of like trying to unpack even in real time is, with what's accessible and available to you, that's great. Like it's access. We want more access. We want more knowledge to be available. And, when we grew up in a time where we just didn't have those things, we figured out the way that it worked for us. So the only way that I would learn how to, pop like Wiggles was either find out where he's teaching or find out there's this thing called the internet and I have this dial-up modem and I have this pirating software where I have one video and I'm going to get that video, or I'm going to like get a VHS tape and then I'm going to like dub a version of it so that I can have it and then I can share it with my other friend. So you just did what you could with what you had. But so, and I think that's what back then we were more sort of like tied to like roots and founders and education, because it almost came hand in hand. Like, well, in order for you to even know who this person is, you would have had to have heard it from somebody. You would have had to have some level of experience with that. And then from there, you become a fan of it. Whereas social media, I can come across a dance video that I don't know who the person is, let alone who choreographed it, let alone was that the original choreographer of it, I just want to, I don't know, I like it, I want to learn it, and I want to post my own version of it because I would love those many views. You know what I mean? Like, and it may be as simple as that, and literally, I don't find anything wrong with that. As kids, if I was a kid and I was like, hey, that looks fun, that has a lot of views, I want that. Let me do the same thing. And if someone were to ask me, like, do you know who created that? Do you know who the founder of that style is, or who actually really? I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I just was doing something that I thought was fun, and I would like those views too. I would like those followers, and so I think that there's like this weird sort of duality of, there's like historical roots of like where things originate. And when you come from a generation where we're used to digging in the crates for those types of things, because that's how we grew up, versus you grew up in a generation where it's like, I just saw the thing and it was very appealing, looked fun. It has a lot of engagement that I would like on my personal profile. I'm just going to go for that. But I think programming like this, like a Roots for Branches, H4, these things that where you recognize there is a divide between the generations. Because technology speeds things up so fast that it's almost technology's fault. But we all want it. We're not trying to slow it down.
To keep up.
But it's like because things become so quickly available, and then it's also exponentially more convenient, and it's on everything. We can access it everywhere. The way that we preserve culture, like we're like, whoa, wait, things are moving too fast. Wait, do you know what we're doing here? And so I think the programming that you're creating is like, okay, if you guys really want to learn about some stuff, like here's like a kind of 101, so to speak, because and I know you've evolved Roots Before Branches too. There's many iterations of it. You're adding to it. You're editing because you realize when that information wasn't fully accurate. Let me edit myself and owning up to that, right?
Absolutely.
And just paying the respects where respect is due. I just think that, you know, again, because I recognize that our listening audience and the audience and fans of Kinjaz go from the youth to people who are of our age, you know, in our late 30s and 40s and things like that. And I do find the responsibility that we have to be like, yo, no one ever got it perfect. And I don't think we should be shaming anybody who is like, yo, you're doing it wrong. Well, you're doing it wrong. It's like, whoa, wait. I don't think anybody fully has it, but let's bridge these gaps. And I think that's the purpose and intention of your programming. The way that you are so vocal in the community, the way that you are trying to create things in spaces where people can have the actual historical roots of these cultural styles and art forms, as well as let's have an open dialogue and let's be imperfect. Let's progress. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
This course is created and delivered with the optimism that if people know, because like you said, we have to acknowledge that people are also born into what they have access to. And I would say 80 to 90% of the students that come through Roots Before Branches or H4 or even Zulu Gremlins, hip hop history stuff, once they know, they're like so into it, right? They're so appreciative. It's like almost they just didn't know. No one told them, you know what I mean? Maybe their neighborhood didn't have access to those, because we are also privileged in California and New York, where it's a birthplace of so many of these dance art forms. But how about Middle America? How about somewhere else on the other side of the earth? You know what I mean? They don't have as access. So that's why I love seeing the light bulbs turn on whenever I do Roots Before Branches, because different students connect to different parts of the workshop, because their human experience is a different combination of different things. So some might be, I connect with everything that I'm learning about Vogue, or someone's like, I hella connect with everything I'm learning about like locking, you know what I mean? And I think that's the beauty of it, is just seeing those light bulbs turn on and then seeing where they go from here. But Roots Before Branches, I just taught it to Culture Shock LA actually 2 weeks ago. And they said there was a big change between the 2021 and 2022.
Wow.
First, it changed from 14 pages to 17 pages front and back. But that's because now I see the connection of these art forms to so many efforts for liberation and equity and freedom and connection, and and so like everything. I'm just excited that I'm excited for the rest of my life to be have growth mindset, that I'm just going to continuously be learning and then have different things to offer. But I think my new handout has a lot about. It covers a lot about erased stories. You know what I mean? Stories that were like, now I've learned were purposely erased from history because they were queer women or, BIPOC, and what an opportunity any of our workshops are to give voice now. And to center people like Damita Jo or the mother of hip hop, Cindy Campbell, people who've just literally been erased from the history books. But because we're in the community, we know them. And now we have this opportunity, because of the position we have, because we all have different kinds of privileges, to give voice to, and how exciting and inspiring that can be, right? So yeah, that's why I love the podcast, because I feel like we have these opportunities for the people you bring in to unlock these stories that a lot of people don't know about, right? Yeah. So yeah,
it'll be crazy to like look back on even this podcast, let's say 30, 40 years from now, right? Yeah. Because when we talk about different, dance art forms from like 70s, 80s, 90s, that were born out of like civil rights movements and things like that, we'll look at TikTok dances and stuff like that,
Yes.
which was a huge cultural connecting thing for
It
the world
was,
during a
yeah.
time also of weird struggle, like a global pandemic.
Yes.
You know, we haven't
Yeah.
had something like this since the Spanish influenza. So, you know,
Yeah.
for us to come around into this very, very digital age, very overly connected
Mhm.
society around the world, and then
Right.
like regardless if you like it or not, a dance revolution
Mhm.
that exists by way of like our time frame. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you said,
Yeah.
it captures time, it captures history, it
is.
captures a moment, whether it be your style of clothes, the ways that you connected, the music and genre you were listening to, and just the
Yes.
things that were just happening. But we live in a society now where more of it is documented, that like
It
a
is.
person like you
Yeah.
40-50 years from now will be able to reference these things, but actually have visual evidence in such a
Yes.
way that it's like you can't refute some of those things, where now you're being you know, you're kind of on this crusade and capable of, and being one of the few who's able to uncover and unlock some of these like hidden stories and stuff. You know, it's
Thank
such a
you.
crazy concept to think about, like, one, the work that you're doing now, and then two, just the way that humans are, the way that society is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And it's really cool because I give props to also a lot of like TikTok and Reel people who create Reels as well, because when we think about how people learn, like I'm an audio visual learner, so I love podcasts and I love videos and stuff. So I give a lot of props to people who cut TikToks and Reels in a way that's like informative or inspiring, or like you said, it's a time capsule, you know, like of everything going on, the amazing things and also the very concerning like things that we need to mobilize, right? Even with elections, right?
Yeah.
TikTok mobilized that as well. So I always like think every tool we get, you know, it's really how it's used.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And I respect savviness, right? Like
Mhm.
people, the savvy TikTokers and the savvy Reel creators and the savvy YouTube content creators. Like I have a lot of respect for people who find something missing in the world or want to tell a story or capture a story that they want to share in a clever way that is accessible to like more people, right? That's why I really do believe in the future, because I feel like we have more tools. I'm just like always looking at like who's using it well, you know what I mean? What's inspiring to me, and so we'll see. You know, it's definitely, I feel like I'm on an older generation, so I'm not as savvy at TikTok, you know. So
Hey, I seen some of your stuff. Man.
Yeah, you doing stuff with Dustin. I see.
Yeah.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, that's for fun, but yeah.
Hey,
So.
cheers to that real quick. Let's take
Yeah.
a little celebratory
For
moment.
sure.
Yes. Cheers, Dad.
Cheers, Chad. Arnel,
Wait. I have a feeling that this is gonna be one of those really good long conversations, so I'm gonna take a piss break.
Yes,
That's a good idea.
Yes.
I need one of those.
Thanks for the edits, everybody.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yes, brothers. Dang.
Well, I'm glad they're gone. Okay, so now
So
it
let's
really
have our
starts.
talk.
And then we had like that meeting of you possibly being like our manager.
I
and I remember that
know.
meeting being like, what?
I said no. I know.
Yeah.
I can't believe that I said no. I said no to Periodics and also Quest Crew.
Mhm.
We're gonna cut that out, but damn, that was juicy.
That was juicy.
Are we gonna
I
cut
know, if
that
I
out?
went in with like specific.
Are we gonna
Yeah.
Because
Are
I
we gonna
could
cut
have. It's talking about how
Just good, like
I was
extra
gonna manage
footage,
them.
man.
Honestly, I might have managed Periodics myself. Shit, dude. That's a whole other conversation.
Yes.
People don't know Anthony's Periodics journey.
I do.
What? Okay,
Chad
I'm gonna talk
does.
about it after.
Yeah. You were always performing with Periodics? for
I
how
do
long?
remember.
Yeah.
I thought you were just gonna be them. Be one of them.
Hey, so did I. No, it's okay. It's okay. Back to scheduled
I
programming.
want to touch back on this though, because we've addressed like I only know about this from this podcast of like how many crews at Anthony. Anyway, we digress.
It's gonna happen in
We
a future
digress.
podcast.
Shout out Cam Legacy. I'm apparently a part of Cam Legacy.
Yeah,
Are a
dude.
part of
World of
Legacy.
Dance set it in stone. Hawaii, we did it.
We did. Yes, we did.
All right, back to our
Are
regular
we
scheduled
back? Are we
programming.
back? All right.
Okay.
Okay, Arnel. Well, you mentioned something earlier about erased stories, and I'm sure there are stories that were just kind of left out to stories that just kind of stopped getting talked about. And I know for yourself, just brother to brother,
Yeah.
and there were things about you stories that you never even really told me. I didn't know about you. Maybe it was just because it wasn't the right time, even in our friendship. Maybe you were also just kind of discovering and searching for yourself.
Mhm.
And then there came a time where those stories were, you felt comfortable sharing and things like that.
Right.
And I think that's big, and, not even to get into this like, oh yeah, let's intentionally go to this place where we're like, oh, we got to talk about certain things. But dude, you're our brother, man. This is straight in our home.
Yeah.
And I know for yourself, you've journeyed through so much personally. And I think this also probably is a big part of like purpose-driven things versus passion-driven things and things like that. So, for yourself, we'd love to tap into it. Like, I just want to open up that door, and however you want to step through that door in terms of the stories that you felt that you've had a hard time kind of coming to grips with, and then the moments where you felt like, I think I want to tell this story, and I think I want to invite people into this world. Like, can you just kind of let us into that?
Yeah, it's like such an interesting thing because I think I mentioned at 31, I was like embarking on this next chapter, right? Finally got through my academic stuff. And ironically, I was also beginning my doctorate program at the same time. That was the same year that between 31 and 32 that I came out as a gay man. And I, it's an interesting thing to, in the last year and a half, I'm a big supporter of therapy now because I've done group therapy in the past, but one-on-one therapy this last year really unlocked a lot of things. Remembering when I was a child, how I would feel like I'm like really like nervous to be my full self, and how I would even watch how my hands are. Is my hand like this? Just that, and it wasn't because I thought I was gay when I was young. I think it was because I was afraid to be gay, because in the 80s and 90s, you're growing up with this very hateful kind of thing towards the queer community where, people were dying of HIV and AIDS and it was just okay. You know what I mean? Like, people were dying, yet no one was helping, and at the time it's interesting because I remember people glorifying, oh, this is such an amazing time. But then I knew in my community, and I knew people were dying of HIV AIDS, and even in the church hearing things like, oh, this is the disease to wipe away gay people, from the earth. And I would just feared being a gay. That wasn't just not a possibility. So any inkling of being confused about who I was, I felt like I stuffed that deep inside. And it's interesting that this past year in therapy, I remember the feeling of like this, you know what I mean? And just living that way for 30 years,
Wow.
of really like thinking about how I'm presenting myself. What does my voice sound like? How do I dress? Like all of these things, because of deep rooted fear and shame, and it was interesting that last year, I didn't even think about in Kinjaz. I'm like the only gay one in Kinjaz. And I think I remembered now, because when Black Lives Matter started becoming really big, it's a completely different human experience and stuff. But the connection I had to it was the feeling of a whole group of people's lives mattering less. And so when I saw all this violence against our Black brothers and sisters, I remembered the feeling of hatred against queer people and how I embodied that. Like I just absorbed it, you know? And that prevented me for 3 decades of my life being fully authentically who I am, you know? And I remember, I think I was just so fearful of the president of the time, who will remain unnamed, feeling like if there's another 4 years of feeling like my, you know, trans lives don't matter and all these things were just against us. It's like, I don't know. I can't do it. I can't deal, you know. I kept feeling triggered and feeling like all this violence against marginalized people was just really destroying this unshakable optimism that I have had my whole life, you know. It was starting to be affected, you know. And I remember we had a Zoom and a check-in with all the brothers. And I remember I was like, who's going to speak up for me as a gay person, you know, if this doesn't go well? And I was like crying. And I think I released that, not necessarily, it wasn't like specifically to the Kinjaz. I think I was like shouting that to the world. And I finally released it in that moment, which is fucking crazy because I broke down crying and I was like super vulnerable. And I remember, because in Kinjaz, I mean, with you guys, I'm hella close, but there's some that I'm still getting, you know, developing closer relationships with. And they were in that space too, but it still felt safe for some reason, you know, because of the energy that we all shared. And I remember after that, the first feeling I had after releasing that was embarrassment. And then it transitioned to like, I'm okay, you know, because of the love. Like, I think you both actually were 2 of the voices that said, dude, but brother, we love you, you know. And I went from extreme paralyzed fear to like, oh, fuck, they love me, you know, maybe this is the beginning of just fully being liberated. And I had already come out, you know, but you realize that there's still the inner child, you know, in you. There's the self-criticizing voice that lives in you that's always there, and you sometimes have to cry out for what you need, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I, you know, definitely remember that time frame being on Zoom as well. Zoom, what a interesting thing, right? what a world to live in.
Yes.
But also just like that feeling that, you know, most of us, all of us except for you, right, are straight men, right? And so we're not always in tune or in focus or just thinking about, of course. And I want to put us in a spot of almost like blame to and be okay with it, to just be like, oh, we didn't recognize certain things, or like we're just usually in our flow. Of course we love each other, of course we support each other, of course we're always going to accept each other for who we are. But when all of us are straight, we don't necessarily think about bringing that up. And then even I think we grew into having such a long history and relationship with you, and you're like a mentor to me personally as well, you know what I mean? It's like we don't necessarily like just choose to open up dialogue or that space for that, and then having you know, have that moment and really just kind of like crying out for that like so strongly affected just our worldview on so many things, and being like, oh dang, like we haven't at all, you know what I mean, provided a microphone or even, you know, back it up a second, an ear to really kind of, as a group, as an organization, as a brotherhood, as a family, give space to, you know, have those conversations and learn more and accept more and all that. So that was a really, really powerful moment that I think was it was tough, but it was a great reality check to understand the beautiful complexity of life and everybody that has their own experiences, and purpose driven. Like, what are we even all kin for? Like, what are we didn't create this thing so we could just dance, like, you know, contrary to popular understanding or belief. Like, at the end of the day, we when you create clubs, it's because you want to feel that you're a part of something. You know what I mean? That's the real essence for why anything is created. And you are so much a part of us, just as much as I'm a part of Kinjaz. And it's like, having that moment was real, honestly, more of a revelation than it needed to be. But at the same time, it's exactly what it needed to be at that time. So, you know, even being able to reflect on it now, it's still I still take it with such like a heavy heart of just like, you know, we can always do better for each other. You know what I mean? And you
it's
are.
like Sean, right? Like you mentioned about the blind spots. Like
Yeah.
even myself as a queer person, I have blind spots because I don't know what it's like to live as a queer female, you know, as a queer woman. I mean, as a trans woman.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
that lived experience, even though I'm, you know, part of the queer community. We all have like these blind spots, you know, but I love what Sean mentioned about, and you guys also mentioned about leaning into those blind spots, because that's the pathways to like, oh, you know, I have these blind spots. When you realize them, oh, that's my pathway to learning and understanding. And then
And
when
just
you
real
have
love and
those-
empathy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, speaking
So-
of like pathway to learning and like, to be honest, I didn't really know how this conversation was gonna really like where are we willing to go or where are we not, you know? But I also feel like this is a safe space. But then I also realize we're posting this stuff, but I'm gonna just talk in the way that I'm
dude,
talking.
cameras are off, dude. Don't worry about it.
No, but I think the
Yeah.
thing is,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be personal at this point now too,
Yeah.
where like, you know, I've had my own experiences in life, and then, you know, and I know there's a lot that I need to like really dismantle in terms of like the way that I think and things like that. And but then I also know that there's like places where I'm like, no, I'm confident that this is not bad, but I also may just be shaped in my way of thinking just because I am who I am with everything that I just mentioned. But I'm also teachable. I'm also willing to learn. I'm also willing to have a conversation and be corrected. And I think we're now living in a very hypersensitive, everyone's fully aware, cancel culture is real. Like if you say the wrong thing, you're going to get canceled. And, you know, if you're not woke, you're going to get called out. And so what I feel like the cancel culture and this like woke culture has almost created is like a fear culture of I don't want to say anything because I might get called out, even though I don't mean it to be offensive, but I might offend you. I'm sorry, because maybe I'm just not aware that that's offensive, but I'm also willing to have a conversation so that I can learn and like, you know, like educate me. Like, and it's, I think the reason why these like erased stories and, you know, people just not understanding each other's experiences because people aren't comfortable talking about stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm the type of person, just me personally, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong and tell me why. And can I also give you my explanation as to why I think this way? I'm not saying that I'm right in it, but I'm just going to give you an explanation. But I want to like also learn so that we can have a dialogue, because I want to learn and I want to be able to get to a better place. But I think when you get to a place where it's like, oh, you said that word paired with that word, oh, nope, you're done. You're out. You're out of here. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's where you're going to make people feel like, I don't want to say anything because I'm just going to get canceled. You know what I mean? And so, you know, again, you know, going back to this, the safeness of the kinship that we all share, but then also recognizing that this is a fully public platform that I'm assuming that someone listening or watching out there may be thinking of these things, of being afraid to speak your mind, and kind of being afraid to say certain things or bring up certain topics without like getting canceled. I would like to get rid of cancel culture. You know what I mean? And I would love to be in this restorative culture, like education. Let's have these open conversations and let's help each other get educated and empathize with one another, knowing that like I may not have had your experience, but like you can help me understand how you feel. And then now that I understand how you feel based off what you've experienced, because then there's this whole other can of worms of Asian hate and Asian American maleness to like over hypersexualized Asian femaleness, like all these like it's just unending.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just like, man, I want to be able to just like have real conversations where we can be transparent and admit our ignorance, you know, but then also help each other get there, because like it's not about like unless you say all the right words, I'm not listening to you. Like, you better hit me with every right word or like it's done. I'm like, I don't have the right words. All I know is what I have. You know what I'm saying? And I think, and now we're transcending dance. You know, we're getting into just like life stuff, and that's what this pod's about. We do dance stuff, but that we want to connect with the world.
Yes.
So I don't know. And at this point, I'm just like, would love to just have a conversation with both of y'all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, is right. It's like, that's the conversation is where you get context and you have nuance. You know, there's pathways for understanding, and there's true communication, because true communication is expressing and also actively listening, right? You have that, but that's why sometimes we get into these trouble spots when people, it's like, for example, just a caption or it's just a post like with just one perspective, when there isn't that conversation and that commitment to holding space and fully listening to each other. We don't get that chance for transformational change. You know, we usually get a limited thing that leads to such a missed opportunity, right? So I feel like that's so important, is like having a safe space, holding that space, expressing, but also listening well, and just being open, because every single human being has blind spots, right? We all have blind spots. We also have privilege. We all have different aspects, because we're intersectional, that make us all individually amazing. But we also have a lot of areas for growth, every single human being on the earth, right? So I feel like that's like, I look forward to more spaces and more platforms and things that actually move in the direction of conversation, understanding. And then also, I would love to also see solution-based conversation too, where, you know, we hold space, we share perspectives. Sometimes you agree to disagree, but then you figure out like, okay, how do we coexist as human beings on this earth? And how do we enact change? You know, is the solution sometimes boundaries? You know what I mean? Whatever it is, you know, how do we move forward? Because no group of human beings are a monolith. We're all individually different. Yeah. And it's that difference can be used to separate us, or that difference can make us have pathways for becoming better human beings, right?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, even for myself, like I definitely believe, and I know that you're a product of your environment, right? Like if you're surrounded solely by like one type of person or one type of thing, that's all you're gonna know. That's all you're gonna know how to express. That's the only language that you understand and all that, right? I remember when I had an inkling to want to dance in high school. I was super into Michael Jackson. I wanted to dance. I didn't know where to learn. And my sister was in dance production. So she was like, you keep on dancing at home in your socks. You got to come learn to dance. You know, she's 2 years older than me. So she was in dance production as like a sophomore or something like that. And so I'm not even in high school yet. And then so she takes me to a dance class a workshop that her high school's throwing at Sunny Hills. And I'm the only boy there. It's all girls. So I'm super uncomfortable in my skin, but I'm there and I have nothing that I can do about it. And then this dance teacher comes in, teaches some stuff, and I recognize I'm having a great time. I'm like, oh snap, that was actually really fun. And then I go into high school and I'm like, okay, I kind of want to learn how to dance. And then I look at dance production, and again, they're all girls and there's one guy. And this one guy is very, very flamboyant, and people are making fun of him. So I no longer want to be a part of it, because I just didn't want to be made fun of. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I just didn't learn dance in high school because of that. And that was just I was a product of my environment. Next thing you know, I go to UCI, and suddenly there's boys and girls dancing together in these giant group teams. And I'm like, wait a minute, those guys aren't gay. They actually look really cool dancing with these girls, right? Some of them were gay though. Yeah, totally. But that's the whole thing. This is my first.
Anyone could be whatever you want to be.
That was my first expression, and I was like, okay, cool. Maybe there's a spot for me there that I can be a part of this community and like be down to dance. Yeah. And then I go in there, and then suddenly I'm like, oh my god, I have gay friends now? I would have never thought, but now I'm part of a dance club, and there's gay people on the dance team, and I'm like, okay, I can't do what my ignorant self was doing back in high school. I can't join in on laughing about stuff. I can't be making fun of stuff. I can't be saying the F word. I can't be doing that stuff. And straight up from a guy who makes lots of mistakes, trust me, I got corrected.
You got school.
It wasn't like, oh, yo,
got
I know these
school.
things, therefore. It was like I did what I knew because I was a product of my environment.
Of course.
And then I got
Yeah.
corrected.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And then next thing you know, as life continues to progress, suddenly I'm part of the dance community, and people like Arnel are there. And Arnel had, I remember when you took me out to lunch one time and you told me your story.
Mhm.
And next thing you know, I'm like, okay, like I am in this community. I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not queer doesn't mean I'm not in a queer community.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
still I make mistakes to this day, but like just being exposed to it and even being able to have a moment like this and have a conversation of it that I've now just been around for a time, even though I'm still learning so much, I find the beautiful value of like a listener who isn't in the same type of community
Yeah.
as us or doesn't have the same types of like connections.
Yeah.
with
They're
people
in
the
like
queer community.
unsafe spaces.
Exactly. But now
Yeah.
they might just hear this
Mhm.
and get something from
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that enough is, as small as a baby step as that might be, that to me is a part of the solution-based conversation. Us being able to just talk might be an
Yeah.
answer to somebody.
Mhm.
You know
I have
what
to
mean?
say, like in the Kinjaz Brethren, like I think it was like 2 years ago. Like we were just joking around, and we all like punk each other.
Oh no!
and I
here we
remember,
go.
no, I
Call
was
me out. It's okay. I made many mistakes.
Do we need to take another shot before
no,
this?
this is a good thing. This is a good thing. And you're like equal opportunity, and you made like a joke, you know what I mean, related to that, touched upon my gayness.
Yeah,
And
Anthony's equal
enough-
opportunist clowning. He clowns
equal
on everybody.
opportunity. And I was, and I looked, and it was, you knew it was something pertinent and not personal, just like a regular jab. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm like, it made me feel included. I was like, I'm like everyone else. It's like, he takes a part of each of us and we just make fun of it for each other, not in a derogatory way, just silly. And I was like, you know what? I feel normal.
Mm.
You know what I mean? In this space, it's like, I feel celebrated, accepted for all of who I am. So yes, he can make fun of certain things that like we all have different aspects to who we are. And it's not personal. It's just like it's funny because we're all brothers, and it's
you
normal.
never reprimanded me. You educated, and that I think is so different and so important because ignorance needs the counter to ignorance is education.
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
discipline or consequence. You know what I mean? I think that is a huge part of making sure the ignorant people out there have a safe space to, like you're just saying right now, like we want to learn
Yeah.
and we want to be okay also expressing why we're the way we've been, even though we want to be open to what we can become.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I love about like our brotherhood is like there's conversations that are fun and memorable and funny and hype, and then we also have so many deep conversations too that are just between our four walls at times.
Yeah.
Where you see in real time we're like growing as men, and, as people.
When you talk about those four wall conversations, I think
Yeah.
Every friend group will have their understanding of what is that four wall conversation. Like the
Yeah.
words that are said
Mhm.
within those four walls will never leave those four walls. And is that bad, or was that just really honest? And I don't find, even if in your honest moments you're wrong, I think that's okay. If you're honest, but you're trying to find a way to be better, but like this is really where I'm at. This is really what I know and what I think. I'm not married to it. Please help me figure out a way out. I love that. And
Yeah.
I want more of that,
Yeah.
because I think, with the way that social media, cancel culture, all these whatever buzzwordy things that we keep throwing around, people are so afraid to be canceled. They're like, I don't say that word. I don't say that word. Even though when I'm in my car driving and listening to a song, I'll say that word by myself, but no one else is here. But like, it's just me. But like, what is the psychology even behind that? Like, when I'm by myself, I can say something, but when I'm around other people, I won't, because I don't want to
rock the boat.
get the consequences of that thing. I think those are very important things to talk about, because I think as society, we help each other find our paths when we expose our weaknesses and when we expose our like, I don't know, our upbringings, and like, here's my experiences and whatever. Like,
I think we just gotta all do our progressive part. You know what I mean?
Yes,
The second it
yes,
becomes
absolutely.
like non-progressive and we start retreating
Yeah.
and start feeling like we don't know how to move, is the second that like it is it's become obsolete. The concept and the education doesn't work, you know, for ourselves,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
undoing. But like
You have to pace your learning and unlearning, right?
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah,
We,
as long
and we
as
gotta
you're
be
doing
okay
it.
with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We gotta be okay being like, hey, look, I don't mean my intentions, you know what I mean, are not to offend, but my actions might do that. And I got to be okay with that and be okay to take it back or apologize or relearn and just acknowledge it for what it is. Because regardless of that topic or another, we're never going to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like we just have to try and be okay trying, because there's never going to be a moment where we tried enough and like, now we're good.
yeah.
You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
second we tried enough
It's
on
like
that one
forever,
thing,
lifelong learning.
And
It's the
you know,
second
but
there's gonna be
it's
another
also what
thing.
you said though too. We're like documenting our learning process in these conversations.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, remember when we were stupid
and
like,
that's that has to be okay. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm on camera more than I probably need to be, which means that like I'm going to have an entire encyclopedia of faults in the future.
As we
You know
all
what I
do,
mean?
yeah.
Like we're
Yeah,
gonna
as
be
we all
deleting
do, as
tweets
we all do.
forever.
Yeah.
But that's part of community learning. And if we can't love ourselves for even our darker moments, then like what was the point of trying to learn or unlearn anyway? You know what I mean? Like I want to ask a potentially ignorant question right now. I don't know if it's ignorant or not, but I'm gonna ask anyway. For example, like Arnel, like when did you know that you were gay?
It's so interesting because it's like I locked it deep inside myself, paralyzed by fear that I lived a different reality, you know what I mean? And then when I was 31, for some reason, I really realized like this is who I am, and you know, I began the journey of being proud of my queerness, you know, and I started coming out to friends. So it was really at 31. I had been in a relationship with my ex-girlfriend for 8 years, you know, with one break in between. And yeah, somewhere along near the end of that journey, I started feeling like I might be bisexual because I had these feelings that I couldn't deny any longer. And she was so supportive. I stayed with her longer because of that support. And she's Melissa Hebron, you're amazing. We're still friends today. That's the power though of reciprocated love. You know what I mean? That she reciprocated that. You know, knowing that I was still trying to find myself, that transformed me because her compassion for me unlocked a compassion I had started to have for myself, which ignited my compassion for other people at the same time. That's why I'm a sucker for anyone. Like when I see people marginalized or like disrespected in a certain way or feelings made smaller, I'm sensitive to that, and I'm a big for the underdog. I'm a big advocate for the underdog. Even all the crews I've managed, I'm like that. I manage you because there's a story that you're sharing that is important for the world, like the Beat Freaks, Fanny Pack, Hava Mater, and Kinjaz. It's like there's something there that like I feel like isn't shown enough that deserves to be centered and, you know, uplifted. And so when the closer I got to my liberation as a gay man, the more I started developing self-love, self-peace. And there's a quote by Young Pueblo, who's this guy that I'm reading his book Inward, and I love it. He said, to self-love is personal revolution in personal evolution in action. Self-love is personal evolution in action. So I felt like the more I grew and I started doing the learning and unlearning about myself and other people, the more I was really cultivating that love within myself. I was healing that inner child and letting that person and all the parts of my identity know, like, you have worth, you matter, you know, and that your life will have purpose, right? Your life has purpose. And so whether it's through dance or occupational therapy or just my energy or my conversation, that's how I want to spend the rest of my life, is reminding as many people to see within themselves that who they are and within themselves and to the world matters. Yeah.
And totally to even like rehash on that reciprocated love, I think that of course, like being on a team that had, you know, queer folk and stuff, like I feel like I accepted and learned to accept, but it wasn't until you really let me in and told me your personal story that I could find strength in and pride for
Yeah,
you as well.
Same. That was same.
Yeah,
same for me.
appreciation.
Yeah.
I know there's like I can remember it distinctly so many. Like I remember for my birthday you came to the Abbey for my birthday,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing from these different parts of my life coming to celebrate my birthday at the Abbey, you know, a place that's safe.
Was that where we're all wearing
safe for
blue?
me. No,
I wore a suit.
oh, that was another one.
Just
That
sorry.
one.
Sorry.
That was the other one.
That's just another birthday.
So, no, that was my 40th birthday.
The gay club.
At a gay club.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. And
And
the Abbey is
all-
also a gay. Okay, anyway.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, actually,
We
I have
can
to
move
say,
past that.
I have to say that my 40th birthday is one of the highlights of my life because I was fully out and fully celebrating all the facets of who I am, and I had all my worlds, my college friends, my hometown friends, all my dance friends under one roof. Also wearing my favorite color that I made everyone wear
Dude,
blue.
I literally went out and bought a blue suit. I never had a blue suit, but I went and bought a blue suit.
Yo, that's
for
when
that.
I remember I was like, I love this man because like I'm taking a step in a place that I'm like totally not comfortable.
Yes, a new place.
Yeah.
And everyone had a blast. I mean, I think everyone had fun, and I was like, damn, you know, like this is like the beginning of the next chapter of how I want to live. You know, I want to live cultivating liberation for myself and fighting for everyone else's liberation at the same time. You know, and it's possible. It's possible. You know what I mean? I think that's what I'm excited for. You know, when I think about the pandemic, like what are the things we missed most during the pandemic? We missed hugs, right?
Yeah.
We missed
Yeah, touch.
conversation
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
person.
Yeah.
We missed like being able to shake people's hands. We missed being in community with other people. You know, I really feel like we're forgetting those very important human lessons as we're starting to, you know, open up again. I hope we don't. I hope we remember how much we missed hugs.
I think it's up to us.
It's up to
it's
us,
up to us
right?
because the younger generations are gonna just go back to it being normal. Like, no, hey, there was a time where
When
people
you
were
couldn't.
wearing masks. They were even afraid to touch fists, let alone shake hands, let alone hug.
You were giving daps with your shoes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, remember
We
that?
saw there's TikTok videos to verify that.
Yeah.
A lot of funny
It's
ones.
such an interesting reality.
Yeah.
You know, this almost apocalypse we, you know, have lived to, and some people in the world are still living through right now. But what a stark reminder of like what is the most important things in life. You know what I mean? To live with purpose, to connect with each other, to love up on ourselves and love up on the people that matter most.
100%, man.
I think I'm a little bit of a realist when it comes to this type of thing because I get anxiety as well when it comes to trying to be the best version of myself, trying to be right, trying to say the right things, trying not to say the wrong things, trying to represent the right way, trying to hold the flags for the things that I've maybe had passion and preached for in my youthful days. And now I'm more wise and it's more difficult to bear such idealism sometimes, you know, like, you know, that's what happens sometimes, right? But I think that realism has come down to me understanding that as long as we move the needle, then we can sleep well that day. You know what I mean? We might not be able to fix everything and save the world, but should we, you know, digress even a little bit from some of the lessons? Did we move the needle and get a little bit better? Because that at least will be like, okay, cool. Like this is still the world that I love living in. You know what I mean? Because we only get that one life. I can't expect everybody to be perfect. And the second I turn on my phone is the second I see the most devastation I've ever seen. You know what I mean? It's a toxic thing turning on your phone and having full access to the world.
Yeah.
Because the news, you know, ratings are as they are. It's easier to share bad stories than it is to share good ones. You know what I mean? So like as long as we're moving the needle.
Yes. And that we also, in my older years, I also see the importance of like healing and self-care and sometimes turning off so you can regenerate, so that you can have the capacity to show up and be better and, you know, unlearn and learn and all those things, right? Because that takes a certain amount of energy. That's why I think it's unfair for people to critique each other's how fast they are at being, you know, agents of change.
Yeah.
As long as we're continuously learning and unlearning and we're going at a pace and we're just not doing nothing, I think we're part of a force that is moving the needle in hopefully the right direction.
Yeah, with that, like, what are you looking forward to? I mean, you know, you're at a phase in life that I feel like is very, you know, you're aware of what you want and what's important to you. Like, where are you pouring your energies and your focuses into these days?
I think I'm really like, you know, my motto, give love, receive love. You know, that was my golden rule right at my first podcast. I think I'm really the last one. First, before I was working on receiving love because I was kind of uncomfortable, and a lot of that is tied to control and fear. I got better at receiving love, and then now embodying love, the be love part of it is like is the constant practice, is embodying love, you know. And I have to say that from 31 when I came out to 40 something.
Yeah, we'll just keep it at 40
you know,
something.
At 40 something, you know. I think I even look at guys I dated and had the evolution of the quality of guys. It was all in direct proportion to my evolution within myself, my healing journey, me loving myself. Because the more I love myself, the more I attracted people who are better for my journey. And so I have to say I'm a fiance now.
Congratulations.
So, you know, Dustin, I love you.
And congratulations on becoming formal domestic partners last year.
Yes. That was like, that was definitely an important step, you know, in our relationship. I think I just want to like just insert this really quick. You know, having the same rights to be able to, like, the pandemic opened the possibility, like, what if one of us got sick and we wouldn't be able to visit each other and be that one person to take care of each other in the hospital because we don't have rights as a gay couple. So we need to, during that pandemic, it said, like, we're ready, you know, we're going to be married someday. Let's just be domestic partners. So we have the ability to just on a basic human level care for each other. If one of us get hospitalized, because I lost my mentor to COVID that year. So we were ready, and it was a celebratory thing on Valentine's Day. And then in November last year, Dustin proposed to me, which was like, wow, like the ultimate like example of receiving love. It was so overwhelming. It was very, unforgettable, you know.
Shout out Dustin. He's an amazing man. He's an amazing man.
Yeah, his vibrations just, we learned so much from each other. So I'm excited for this next phase of life of balancing my personal life with what I pour into, you know, the world, you know, as an occupational therapist, as a dance educator, as a human being, whatever, you know. I'm also balancing that with, you know, being a fiance, being a soon to be puppy dad.
Heck yeah.
Puppy dad.
Puppy daddy.
Also, a special shout out. You're also balancing all that while still being able to be positive mentor figures to even people like my fiance Nina through her occupational therapy journey.
She was my first doctoral student.
Yeah, and you were her mentor
park.
during her capstone project, and it's like for me to even have that full circle moment where it's like, dude, this Arnel, my big brother, my mentor, gets to have this unique experience that I'm like not even, I just get to witness, you know what I mean? For somebody who I love and care about so much too. And just like that is so powerful for me, you know what I mean? And it just deepens our relationship even by association even more. So dude, thank you for all that you do constantly. Like
thank you, brother.
You changed my life even when you're not changing my life. You're changing my life.
Yeah, and another facet, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
great,
you for sharing that, brother.
Well, Arnel, I mean, you've done so much, bro. Like, we can literally go forever in terms of, you know, what you've done for communities, what you've done for friendships, what you've done for Kinjaz, inspiring people from all different walks of life, not just dance. It's like so not even close to being limited to just dance. And, you know, from where I sit, I think I can speak for ourselves. From where we sit, we're looking at a successful guy, you know, somebody who has pursued his passions and now is pursuing purpose-driven things. But I actually don't know, like what in Arnel's mind right now how does he define success, and what is a successful life, which I'm sure has been shaped and iterated over the years. So we'd love to tap into current day Arnel Calvario. What is success to you?
Success for a while, but especially more now, is legacy, I think. Like, what is going to be my footprint on the world? And that's why I think when I value, it's like, I don't think any titles or any, like, even any trophies or anything I won with any dance teams matter as much as, like, how was my impact on other human beings during my time that I've been here on earth, you know what I mean? And I hope that my legacy would be as, like, someone who used love to change people's life for better, you know? And maybe by example of being committed to being a lifelong learner, that maybe I inspired someone to have that growth mindset, to always continuously, you know, grow into the best version of themselves. And I hope I continue learning and unlearning all the way till my last breath, you know what I mean? That I'm just always elevating, you know, up. It's never going to be a smooth, it's more like this, you know what I mean? Little steps, you know? But I'm just, as I get older, I'm more okay with that. I'm more okay with being imperfect. I'm more okay with, like, discovering blind spots that help me, like, understand the possibilities of learning, you know? And my next phase of life is definitely more, like, focused on leaders, because I think that's going to be, I mean, that's why I did leadership tools for the dance leader, you know? I reached over 300 leaders in the past year and a half all over the globe. And it's really not more like me being attached to their accomplishments, but me just being a part of their journey, as I know those people will change the world in their own, like, amazing, extraordinary way. And I'm very motivated by that, you know, planting seeds so that they can grow their own branches of change. And yeah, and then working with people like Nina too, like bringing my worlds together. Maybe I think I talked about it before. Maybe this is the summer that the dance camp, you know, the dance therapy camp for kids with special needs happens, where I bring occupational therapy and dance together to again serve a community that often gets forgotten, you know. And I think what I want to change now with that program is no one knows what it's like except for people living with it, you know, whether it's autism or Down syndrome. Now I've been, like, really blessed to know more adults living with, you know, neurodivergent adults who I want them to be part of this program as people who lived it or are living with it, how they can really connect to younger people on their journey, you know? So I'm excited about that it's even changed from 2 years ago to now, like, how can I even level it up? Now I feel like it's better that it's this time. I was bummed when the pandemic happened. I was like, damn, I was all ready to go. Tamlin Tomito was already supporting it, you know, funding it. And I was ready. And I was like, damn, the pandemic closed it, you know? But there is divine timing, you know, God and universe has a plan beyond our understanding. And I feel like I'm way more ready now. I feel like it's a better time. And Nina is going to be a part of that journey too, because even her journey being connected to mine, I think, has even opened up possibilities of how to make it better. So,
dope, man.
Plucking my heartstrings right now, bro.
It's hitting home, man. It's hitting home. Well, Arnel, you know, in classic movement in this, I don't know if we did a lightning round with you because you were so early on. That might have been before lightning round.
I think we did. We did.
Okay. Well, we got new questions now because time has changed.
Okay.
So we're gonna get into it. Lightning fast answers.
Okay.
Shake Shack or In and Out?
In and Out.
Ooh, favorite superhero?
Damn. I'll say Wolverine.
What's your favorite superpower?
Professor X's powers.
Oh, the mind.
The mind.
So with that, which superhero would you be if you could be one of those characters?
Professor X for sure.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But the Professor X before he got crazy and destroyed the world.
Yes, yeah. We
Spoiler
know that guy.
alert.
Get on those movies. Get caught up. Favorite movie in the last year?
Oh dang! In the last year, damn, I'm feeling at this lightning round.
Come off top, man. What's the last one that you were like, damn, that was pretty sick?
Shang-Chi was like the
Let's
last
go.
one.
That was
I mean, that's the last
cool.
one I saw.
Yeah.
I have so many other favorite
Have you seen the
ones.
Batman yet?
No, not yet.
Oh.
but I
Not
think I
saying
would-
anything.
It's all right, it's all right.
I would love that.
Who was the dancer who has shaped your life the most?
Don Campbell for sure.
Yeah.
Don Campbell, absolutely.
All right.
Sick. Who's a current day hero of yours?
Logan.
Hey,
Let's go.
I said
Logan
her in the
Edra.
first one too. She's just she's ever evolving, and she embodies love, I think.
Yeah,
in
shout out
everything she
logistics.
does.
We love you.
Yeah.
What did you think you were going to be growing up? Career-wise,
Mhm.
where did you think you were going to end up?
It's so funny because I thought that I always wanted to be a health professional, but I looked at this kindergarten book I made, and it was making commercials.
Oh,
A commercial producer was my first career that I wrote down,
wow.
which is crazy. So I'm like, when I think about it, I'm like, maybe it's like the message part of it that's kind of
Yeah.
carried with me, because that part of me was like definitely acknowledged through benefit shows and
mhm.
through some of our campaigns too, right?
Totally.
Right.
Like it's having a message and delivering it in an innovative way. I think.
So if you weren't in dance or in OT right now, what would you be doing?
I might be a psychologist, actually. I
Think you'd be a
think
good
like
one.
I like conversation and
Yeah.
listening and stuff. But I think where I am at is my sweet spot, though. But that might be the other one if I never discovered it.
Totally.
Yeah.
What is your least favorite quality about yourself?
Is probably myself, my critical voice. That quality, because I have a critical voice that sometimes drives me into a fear place that tells me I'm not deserving, or I think about too much what other people think. And it's interesting being in partnership with someone who's the opposite of that, who is very direct and
Mhm.
also doesn't really care what other people think.
Yeah.
We kind of have a good balance, but that that critical voice is something I recognize that has traveled with me in my life that I'm trying to keep in check. Yeah.
What is the best quality about yourself?
Maybe my compassion, I would say my thoughtful compassion. I think that's one of the things I think I can do.
Oh yeah, you could do that.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm gonna co-sign that one. I'm gonna
If you were to
co-sign that one.
splurge on something materialistic right now, what would it be?
Ooh.
Oh my God, there's so many Nike shoes I have my eyes on right now. I have so many expensive shoes on my list that I'm just not gonna allow myself to buy.
Hey, good
Yeah.
job though. Self-control.
Oh
What is your proudest moment?
damn. My proudest moment.
That must be tough for you. You must have a billion moments
Yeah,
to be
you
proud of.
got a laundry list. Of moments.
Yeah.
My proudest moment. There's a lot of grateful moments, but I think my proudest moment where I felt like I set me on the trajectory for purpose. The first time I felt like I had a true I was in line with purpose was at the Color of We benefit show, where that show we actually interviewed different people from experiencing HIV, like maybe like a husband of a wife that had HIV, a girl who was born into the world with HIV, a lesbian couple where one has HIV and another person just newly diagnosed like a month before.
Wow.
People who have died, and taking those stories and collaborating with those people to make their stories come to life, and then having them in the front audience. I remember standing and bowing and seeing them, all these people crying, and then seeing the entire audience standing up and feeling like, this is fucking it. This is what art can do.
That's sick, dude.
That's probably my proudest moment. I kind of measure everything, that feeling to that. I had it at Roy Meets World too, that feeling at the end, because you remember that feeling standing on that stage looking out and everyone stood up and you felt like connected to something. Yeah, if I have just more moments like that in my life, either not for myself, like seeing other people like experience that or being a part of that. It's like, I think that's like that extra sparkle magic that's like life's what makes life like something really shifting, you know?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Love
Least
it.
favorite Kinja. No, I'm kidding.
Who do you want to kick out? Who do you want to kick out of the crew?
my
Tell us
God,
after
this
the
is the
podcast.
worst.
Tell us
Yes,
after
can
the
we,
pod.
like-
That's the post podcast.
Oh my God. That's like a totally anti-Arnel question.
Oh, but is it?
Oh, but it's such an Anthony question.
All right. So just to wrap up, we're out of the lightning woods. If you could prescribe something to the world, something that everybody had to do, what would that be?
Be kind to self and others. That's what I would say. Be kind to self and others. They're connected.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, we've had you on the pod before. We've gotten your golden rule, and if anybody's curious, go back to that episode and listen to what Arnel's golden rule is. We're switching things up this season. You know, we within the Kinjaz, sort of universe, and the way that we kind of geek out on certain things, right? The concept of mastery is this thing that we all, in some way, shape, or form, are searching for. We're working towards. And it mastery, at least in my mind, it goes from something that's super on a grand scale to something that can be super very simple. And Bruce Lee, the great
hold the Bruce Lee plant he just gave you.
Oh yes,
Bruce Lee.
Arnel just gave Ben this
what?
this succulent
Wait, did you do this
terrarium
after having
kind of
listened?
that's got Bruce Lee in it.
No, Bruce Lee goes far beyond
does,
the podcast.
it does.
With Ben.
Yeah, he's my uncle.
Anthony's uncle. And we've been given this Bruce Lee quote. We don't need to go into how many. This has been something that we've been talking about for a while. So this is not something that just popped up. So this guy, good old Bruce here, has one of many, very, very just amazing sayings and quotes. He says, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." And the concept of not trying to do everything and just being like, hey, I've tried that, but more of I'm only focusing on being good at this one thing, and I'm going to pour all my effort, all the hours, the 10,000 hours, the 10,000 attempts into this one thing. And like I said, it could be something of a grand scale to something that you don't even think is something noteworthy. But we believe, Kinjaz believes everybody can master something, anything.
Right.
So what is the thing that you feel like you've mastered?
I would say personalized compassion for self and others. Because everyone has different love languages, you know what I mean? Like some of us, well, just being a Filipino American, the stereotype or whatever, I didn't necessarily grow up with words of affirmation, but my dad and mom were like great examples of acts of service and quality time. And I grew up with that, right? I feel everyone has a different way that they love to be loved and supported. And so I would say create like a personalized, thoughtful compassion where you love on people and yourself in ways that are like most meaningful, most impactful.
Whoa,
Master Calvario,
I'm gonna have to unpack that one for a minute, so I'm gonna go back and listen to this one. But Arnel, well, first of all, thank you for the gift.
Look at that personalized compassion right there.
You already knew. Look at this guy, he's just speaking to me. Right back there getting cozy. What you've done for the community, forget that, man. Let's go back to what you've done for us personally. I think this is what I love about us having this platform. This is the Kinjaz podcast. We get to kind of connect with who we want to connect with, and the people who have impacted us, the people who we feel like are impacting culture. And you've done both, and you've done and are doing both continuously to this day. And just to even get a little bit open and transparent with our audience here, Arnel hit us up last week, and was talking to us about his observations of the podcast, things that he's been really loving. Of course, Arnel, typical Arnel fashion, has hit us with the love like barrage, and then with some loving constructive criticism, the things that he feels that like, are we thinking about these things or that? But I only bring that up to say, Arnel, from our experiences with you within Kinjaz, my experience personally as a brother and friend, I'll let Anthony say his piece for himself. You are such a thoughtful person that loves people first. You love what you do, you love what you believe in, and then based off the people and what you love, what you do and love it, what you believe in, you create and you cultivate spaces that are not always comfortable, things that sometimes pushing people and challenging people by nature is uncomfortable, but the outcome we know is always going to be like, on the other side of this is progress, on the other side of this is growth. And that's why I always not only welcome, but I like yearn. I yearn for the Arnel perspective, energy, words, and you're the real life Benjamin Button, man. You keep getting younger, and you're still killing it so hard in so many ways, and then you're also tapping into other people's lives, like Anthony's fiance, and that's my segue to Anthony. Start saying words,
Dude.
Love you, brother.
We keep it simple. But I will touch on Benjamin Button. Dude, this guy keeps getting sexier every day, man.
Yeah.
For real. You like literally look better than when we were freaking at the Abbey. Anyways.
Oh my
gosh. Sometimes pride is good, so I'll say it, with a grain of salt. But I'm very proud of the person I am. But I wouldn't be who I am without you. You've been very, very, formidable for me.
Same.
So yeah, I'm just always happy to just continue life with you. All the good, all the bad. I'm always gonna be there for you the way that I know you're always there for me. And for everybody in our community. So just thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for having a real conversation.
Yeah, this one was
real.
real.
Apparently the cameras were on. I don't know, but
We kind of went off script on this one, or maybe we didn't.
Maybe we didn't. But
it was kind of long.
It was
but...
real, and
I know.
And I think that's what we get from Arnel always, just
Yeah,
real. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And I think that's what allows us to continue knowing that we're following a North Star. Continue to be able to call you somebody like Yoda, a Jedi Master. You know what I mean? You don't have to call yourself that because we believe it, and we call you that because we learn from you all through everything you do. And I just hope that through moments like this on the podcast or anything else that we get a chance to share, like people can get in touch with who and what you are, your legacy and your essence.
Yep.
So legacy is a damn good one, man. And even for us to just ride that one with you is going to be a good enough legacy for me. I'm serious.
Let's get it.
Appreciate you guys so
Well,
much.
if you want to keep on following the North Star, Arnel, where can people follow your journey, man? What's going on? Plug all your good stuff.
Definitely Instagram is like my photo album of my life, and also like all the projects I work on, the purpose projects, right? Mainly Instagram. It's just Arnel Calvario, easy. I'm on Twitter and Facebook, but I'm not as active on those anymore. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, I'm sure if they're following your IG, they'll get all the updates on the Roots Before Branches and all the leadership things that you're working on. And cool. So guys, make sure you guys follow them on Instagram. We'll plug that in the caption and the show notes. And thank you guys for tuning in and spending some time with us. We know this one was maybe a little bit longer, but there's depth here, and we love it. That's what we're trying to do, is just be real, bring real conversations, real thoughts to the table. And thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys are digging what we're doing, get onto iTunes, your podcast platform, wherever you're digging and receiving the content. Leave us a 5-star rating if we're doing well. Write us a review. All those things helps us get visibility on the charts. And KINJAZ Podcast, cast with a K, on all the socials, IG, Twitter, Facebook. And screenshot us, tag us. I regram all that stuff. I love to interact with you guys. And again, if you guys are tuning in for the first time, we have a whole bunch of amazing episodes, amazing guests before this. So welcome. But if you are rocking with us, welcome back. Thanks for rocking. And we'll see you guys on the next one.
Kinjaz Bang.
Peace.